Hi, welcome to Noble Character Crafts. My name is Amy and I am coming to you from eastern Nebraska where I live with my husband and our 5 children. Today is Friday, September 25th, 2020. This is a podcast all about my crafty life and today I have knitting and crocheting to share with you all. You can find me online on Instagram at Noble Character Crafts, and you can also get in contact with me through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. I will have links to the places that you can find me in the description box below, as well as the show notes for this episode. I am hosting a year-long make-along over on Instagram this year. It is called the Make 9 2020 Mal, and that is for you to join in on the Make 9 challenge. It's still not too late because I do not require you to finish your board. So if you would still like to join in, there have still been people entering even this late on in the year, and it's so fun to see people joining in still. So the idea of this make-along is for you to make a grid showing 9 projects that you would like to make this year, or even projects that you've already started, WIPs that you would like to finish up this year. And just post those in a grid and use the hashtag Make92020Mal, and then anytime you post a picture showing any of your works in progress or any of your finished objects, you can include that hashtag and that will enter you to win a prize, which I am giving away periodically throughout the year. All crafts are included, and as I said, WIPs are included as well, so please don't hesitate to continue to join in, and I love seeing all of the projects that you all have been working on this year. It's so much fun to see all of the progress that everybody is making. But as I said, you do not have to finish anything, or you don't have to, of course, you don't have to finish everything on your list. I know so many of us change our minds as the year progresses, and that's perfectly fine. It's just a fun make-along that is hopefully encouraging people to stay focused on the projects that they want to make, but if we change our minds, we should make what we want, right? So it's not a big deal if you do not finish your entire Make 9 list, or like I said, you don't even have to finish anything. It's just a participatory make-along. So this, I haven't given out a prize in a while, so I'm excited to give away a prize today. I had an inkling to dye up a little yarn. So I used to sell my hand-dyed yarn, and I haven't in a long time. I just don't dye yarn very often anymore, only when I need it for my own personal project, but I just really wanted to dye up some yarn in these fun colors, and so I made a mini set, and it's kind of like a fade because they all really go together, but they are all a little bit different from one another as well. So you can see that this one has a lot of deep purple in it. They all have a little bit of bright pink in them. This one has a lot more red in it. This one has some more gold colors in it. So they're all very cohesive, but they are all a little bit different as well. And then I've also included a cute little progress keeper that kind of goes along with the bright pink colors in there. So this is going to be going off to one of the folks that has been participating in the Make 9 2020 Mal, and the winner is Brittany. Congratulations, Brittany. She is known as Pebbles Girl Craft on Instagram. It's been so fun to see all of the projects that you've been making this year, and I'm so excited that you have won this prize. I hope that you really enjoy it. If you can get in contact with me either through Instagram or through my email at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com and let me know your mailing address, I will be so happy to get this off in the mail to you as soon as possible. And thanks again for continuing to participate in the make-along. I am super excited that I was able to finish my Ladies Autumn Whirlpool. This was for my own personal Make 9 list. This is the 5th object that I've been able to complete from my Make 9 list, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. This design is called the Ladies Autumn Whirlpool, and it is by Natalie Pelykh. It was knit from the top down. I used my own hand-dyed yarn on a fingering weight, 100% non-superwash merino wool. And it was knit on super fine needles, so all of the ribbing was knit on 000s 1.5 millimeter needles. And then the remainder of the sweater, the body of the sweater, was knit on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. The cable work was part of the pattern, but in the cable work, I decided to add beading to this sweater. So I just added in beads wherever I thought they would look good, and I'm so pleased with how it turned out. It just adds that little extra bling to the yoke that makes it so much more special, I think. The beads that I used are from Seed Bead Paradise, which I found on Etsy. And the beads that I used are these beautiful, they're called Lustered Gold Lustered Raspberry is the color of those beads. They are Toho size 6 beads. And I just added those in with a crochet hook as I went along. There is some short row shaping after you get done with the yoke on the back of the sweater, so that really helps the fit to be beautiful. The neck goes up a bit in the back, which is just such a wonderful fit. I did not make any modifications to the pattern until I got to the like the waist shaping. There was some waist shaping, and then after the waist shaping there were supposed to be some hip increases, but I did not do those. I continued to add a little bit more waist shaping decreases both to the sides. Maybe I should stand up so you can see better. So I added a few more waist shape decreases in this area, just like right above the ribbing, and then I also added quite a few decreases to the ribbing. About halfway through the ribbing I added decreases. So last time I showed this, I showed how there was like a V shape right here where I had done some decreases. Well, in the end it didn't work out so well. So this is the third time that I have had to sew a garment after I have finished it, and that's what I did to this one. I will insert a picture here so you can kind of see how the sides turned out. And when I really didn't notice it until after I had blocked it, but the sides really did not have, they really, after the ribbing, it really just kind of puckered out quite a bit, and it was so unflattering when I had it on. So when I tried it on, it just looked like I had almost like love handles way up here on my waist. It was just really not flattering. So what I did in the picture, you could see that I pinned it out, and I just, right from the bottom of the decreases that were here on the ribbing, I just sewed a straight line from that point up to the bottom of the armpit area. So I just made a straight line, you know, gradually going, you know, over to the underarm area, and that worked out perfectly. I just did it on my sewing machine. I did a straight stitch. I did go over it twice so it would be extra secure, and then once I got done I just cut off the extra material that was on the inside that I did not need. So anyway, it worked out in the end, but it's kind of funny that this is the third time that I've knit. I've done 2 cardigans and now this sweater where I have just sewn up the side seams to get a better fit. So I'm glad I can do that with my knitting, but it is a little funny that I have to do that again. Anyway, I also changed the pattern with the sleeves. I did not do any decreases in the sleeves. I just knit straight until I got to the cuff where I did a rapid decrease and then knit the cuff. I absolutely love that fit for a sweater, for the sleeves for sweaters. I just really prefer to have a less fitted sleeve. It's so much more comfortable. All of the ribbing is 2x2 ribbing. Let's see if there's anything else I've forgotten about this sweater. Let me check my notes. Oh, I did use the helical knitting method for the first time when I knit this sweater. After I got done with the yoke, I started doing the helical knitting method, alternating my skeins of yarn so that I would, you know, be able to distribute the color most evenly. And I did that for the sleeves as well as the body after the yoke, and that worked out wonderfully. I'm so happy that I was able to learn the helical method, and I'm super excited to be able to use that in the future with other projects. So I think that is all. Oh, I cropped the length of it too quite a bit, which is pretty typical for me, and I probably lengthened the ribbing too. I didn't follow the pattern for that. I didn't look at the pattern for that. I just did what I wanted until I had the fit that I liked. So I think this is probably my favorite sweater that I've knit to date. I'm super happy with it, and I'm really glad that I was able to get it done. I can't wait until the temperatures cool off a bit more. so I can get a lot of wear out of it, but we are having a heat wave right now, which I hate. But anyway, I can't keep this on because I'm too warm, so I'm going to take it off. I guess that gives me an opportunity to show you the inside seams where I sewed it. So here is one of the side seams. So you can see I started sewing it about midway through the ribbing where I had ended my decreases, and just sewed a straight line up to the underarm. And you can see I've just cut off the extra. And like I said, I've done this before, so I'm not worried about it ripping out. Well, I've sewn, you know, I've steeked 2 cardigans as well. So I sewed, I guess for one of those I did not use my sewing machine, I don't think, but for the second one I know I did. I also added a tag to the back so that I can tell the front from the back pretty easily, but as you can see, the front does go down quite a bit more than the back because of the short row shaping that was added. So I love that. When I was first, I'm not very good at reading ahead when I'm making a pattern, and so I had thought about the short row shaping and how there wasn't any in this pattern until I got done with the yoke, and then there it was. So that was wonderful because that just makes the fit even better. I love it. I'm so pleased with it. I was also able to finish a pair of socks, and I'm so pleased with how these turned out as well. These are knit out of Patons Kroy socks yarn in the Brown Rose Marled colorway, which is a fingering weight 75% wool, washable wool, and 25% nylon. I cast on 64 stitches. I knit them on US 1 2.25 millimeter needles. I did a 2x2 ribbing for about 2 inches. And then I switched to 3x1 ribbing for the leg of the sock. I did a slip stitch heel flap and gusset. For the heel, I used Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Oyster Heather colorway. And then I continued on with the 3x1 ribbing on the top of the foot, just did plain stockinette on the bottom until I got to the ball of the foot where I added a slip stitch detail. This is the 3rd pair of socks that I have made for myself using this slip stitch detail, with the hopes that it will give me a little more durability in my socks, because the sole of the foot is where I wear a hole in my socks most quickly. So I'm really hopeful that that slip stitch detail will be able to prevent me getting holes as quickly in my socks. And then I just did a rounded toe. For the heels and toes, whenever I'm making just a standard sock for myself, I always use the heel and toe pattern from any of Kay of the Crazy Sock Ladies sock designs, because that I have that memorized now, and it works wonderfully for me. It's just a great fit for me, so I'm super happy with that. I knit these 2 at a time, which is my favorite way to knit socks on Magic Loop, and I think that these will get a ton of wear. I love the colors in them, and I really love a simple ribbed sock. It is a great fitting sock, and yeah, super happy with these. All right, on to works in progress. My first work in progress is in this beautiful bag from Tanny Casey. And this is the Kimber Shawl, which is another project from my personal Make 9 list. This is the 6th project that I'm working on from that list, and I'm super happy with how this is turning out. Last time I showed this on the last episode, I was right here where that progress keeper is marking, so I haven't made a ton of progress, maybe just about an inch, maybe 1.5 inches of progress on this, but I really love how the lace work is turning out. It's so beautiful. The yarns I have used so far are the first color I used is from Adriana, who had a yarn dyeing business called String to Stitches Yarns, but she no longer dyes yarn, but the color is called It's Fall Y'all, and it's so beautiful. I love that. And then the second color that I've started using is my own hand-dyed yarn, and I don't dye yarn anymore either, but this colorway I called Sweetness. So it's a bare yarn that's speckled with pink, purple, and brown. And I love how those two are working up together. Now this is quite scrunched up on the needles, which are, I started off with US 5 3.75 millimeter needles, and then once I started the lace work I switched to US 6 4 millimeter needles, and then these two yarns that I'm using so far are both superwash merino, 75% superwash merino yarn, 25% nylon, and the third color that I'm going to be using will be this golden color, which is another yarn I dyed myself. But this is a non-superwash merino wool, and so I'm going to switch even up to a larger size. I'm going to go up to a US 7 4.5 millimeter needle for once I get to this color, just because it won't have quite as much stretch as the superwash will. And so I want to make sure that I'm going to try to make sure that the gauge is as even as possible by increasing my needle size as I go. The reason why I switched from the 5 to the 6 was because I switched from the garter section, the garter stitch section, to the lace section, and garter stitch has a lot more stretch than the lace does. So anyway, that's my goal. And then the fourth color I'm going to be using is this beautiful yarn, which is also a non-superwash base. This is from a homespun house. It's in the colorway Homestead. I'm so excited to get to this color, but I have put this project on hold, and I've put my personal Make 9 list on hold until I get several Christmas projects done. I think I counted 8 projects that I want to make as Christmas presents. And so I'm putting all of my personal projects aside until I get those done, just because I'm getting a little concerned that I won't be able to get them done in time. I think I'm gonna have to throw in the towel on my personal one. I still have this shawl, another shawl, and a cardigan and a sweater on my personal Make 9 list, and it's probably not gonna happen this year. My husband has asked me to make him a sweater, which I'm super excited about. His birthday is actually on Christmas. So he said, do you think maybe you could have it ready for me by Christmas? And I said, yeah, that's a good goal. I can try to do that. So anyway, I'm super excited to make him a sweater. I never have yet before. And I'm excited about that. But he is a big guy. So he's 6'4", and he's a big guy. And I think that will probably be a long, it'll take me a long time to make it. So I've got the pattern all picked out. I don't have the yarn yet, but the yarn is out of stock right now, the yarn that I want to get, and so I'm just waiting for it to get back in stock. Hopefully, they said it was supposed to be back in stock by by September 22nd, I think was the date that it had listed from Knit Picks. But then now it just says available soon. So I don't know, we'll see. But anyway, I will talk to you more about that once I get it started, which will hopefully be soon. We'll see. But anyway, like I said, I'm going to be putting my other projects from my Make 9 list on a hold. And yeah, we'll see if I get to any more of them before the end of the year. We'll see how long it takes me to get through my Christmas gift list. So, all right, my next work in progress. So this is another project that I would really like to get done before Christmas. This is, I'm holding this in this huge basket, and it's filled with all of the yarns, all of the yarns that I'm using. So there you can get an idea. All of the yarn that I am using is 100% acrylic yarn, worsted weight. A lot of it is from my stash, but I did buy a few new colors to go with this project from Hobby Lobby. So a lot of it is Hobby Lobby's. I love this yarn. I am using an eye hook, which is 5.5 millimeter, and I'm using a Clover brand. This is the Navajo Diamond Afghan by Hook and Loops. And it is a free pattern on her website. And I'm super happy with how this is turning out so far. Here is a progress keeper showing where I was last time I recorded an episode. So I've been able to more than double this size of it so far. I was inspired to make this because I was looking at one of the scrappy Afghans that I have from my grandmother, and she followed this pattern, and so I was inspired to try to find the pattern, and I did, and I'm so pleased to be working up this Afghan. This is going to be a gift for for a gentleman that came over here and helped us get a bat out of our house. So this is kind of a thank you gift for him for his help with that, and he is married and has 4 children, so this will be a nice family gift for them. So I'm super excited about that. The construction of this blanket is unique in that you cast on the length of the blanket. So I cast on 246 stitches as the pattern recommends or calls for. And then you're also only ever stitching on the right side of this blanket. So you start here on the right side and you work across and you add in the diamond texture as you go along, and then you cut the fringe on the other side, and then you just start a new row back on this side again and work across. So both ends, which will be the top and the bottom of the blanket, have this fun fringe that I'll probably be tying into some knots and trimming down a little bit. My grandmother's fringe on the blanket she made is only about 2 inches long. I want this fringe to be a little bit longer, but I'll probably trim it down a little bit. But anyway, I love the colors in this, and I'm really enjoying working on the pattern. It's so fun. There have been a few times where I got off on my stitch count, where maybe I skipped a stitch. I find that the stitch right after this, so it's all done in single crochet stitches, US terms, and you work into the back loop only, except for this special stitch here, which makes the texture of the diamonds, and that is a double crochet that's worked down a couple of rows into the front loop that was left unworked. And when I do the stitch that's right after that, sometimes it's a little bit difficult to tell where I'm supposed to put my hook for the next stitch. And I don't know if that's the problem or what the problem is, but there have been a few times that when you get to a point, you can kind of tell that you can easily count the stitches and tell if you're off by a stitch or two. And there have been a few times where I've been off, where I've either had to make an extra stitch or decrease, but it's not noticeable, so it's fine by me. I just try to kind of keep an eye on my stitches so that I don't get too far off, but it's going well. I did mention last time that I was having trouble with curling, and before I recorded the last episode, I steam blocked the work that I had already done, and that really helped the work to lay flat. But as you can see, this corner is still curling under, so I don't know, but I'm confident that when I steam block it, it will be fine, but it is kind of frustrating that it does that. But anyway, hopefully it won't be a problem. It shouldn't be, because I did steam block it before and it laid flat once it was steam blocked, so hopefully it won't be a problem. I did mention last time, and I thought I would just let you all know that I had a problem with the foundation chain. It's quite a bit looser than the rest of the gauge for the blanket. I don't know if you can tell, but this first dark row here is quite a bit looser, and it doesn't lay really nice and flat, not as nicely as I would like it to. And it's too late for me to go back now and fix it, but somebody did suggest, which I thought was a great suggestion, to go down a hook size whenever you're starting a foundation chain, because I guess it is pretty typical for that foundation chain to be a bit looser than the rest of your gauge. So I will definitely try to keep that in mind in the future, but I think it'll be fine in the grand scheme of things. Once it's all done, hopefully it won't be too noticeable. So anyway, I'm super excited about that. I'm not exactly sure how wide I will make it. So, I've already got the length of it, and so I'm just working on the width. It is for a family blanket, so I'm thinking that I'll make it a little bit bigger than a twin size, maybe more like a full size. So it could be kind of like a blanket for their whole family to share, maybe. I'm not going to make it as large as I did for the blanket that I finished, I don't know, a month or two ago for my brother-in-law's family, which was 6 feet wide. I'm not going to be making it that big, I don't think. But anyway, I want it to be a nice throw size, I think. So my last work in progress that I have to share with you is just a little bit of progress that I have made on my crazy granny stripe blanket. So I am working this up using up the tiniest little bits of scraps that are left over from my other scrappy blanket, which I showed off on my last episode, my Hexy scrappy blanket. And so whenever I have a tiny little bit of yarn that's left over that's too small to go into that blanket, I save it, and I've been adding it to this granny stripe blanket, and I love this so much. So I've only added a couple of more rows. I only had a 14-gram ball that I had saved from the last time I worked around my hexie blanket. So I was able to add, I don't know, about 3 rows, I guess, to this blanket. Maybe not even 2.5 rows, maybe. But I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I love it so much. And it just makes me super happy that this yarn would have typically been thrown in the trash, and now it's getting used to make this gorgeous blanket. So I'm so excited about that. I used the YouTube tutorial by Bella Coco, and I chained 300 stitches to start this, and I'm using a hook somewhere. Where'd it go? Ah, there it is. I'm using another clover hook. This is a C 2.75 millimeter hook. And this, of course, will be a super long-term project, but I'm so excited about it. It just makes me so happy to be able to work on it whenever I do have a little bit saved up. So those are all of the works in progress that I have to share with you, but I do want to answer a few more questions that I received from my in my 99th episode. For my 100th episode, I did a special question and answer episode for my 100th episode, but I was not able to get to all of the questions, and I wanted to be able to go through and answer all of the questions eventually, so that's what I am going to work on for the next few episodes until I get through all of those questions. And then as I've been going along, I've also been continuing to get a few more questions, which I really appreciate and welcome. So if you do have any other questions, please feel free to comment down below or email me at noblecharactercrafts@yahoo.com. If you have any questions for me, I'm super happy to answer those for you. So one of the questions that I received in my last episode in the comments was about our children. She said, I believe you adopted your kids and wondered how that journey progressed. And so yes, we did adopt all 5 of our children. We were foster parents, and we were so grateful and blessed to be able to adopt all 5 of our children without a lot of hiccups, as is typical with usually in foster care. It's very difficult to be able to adopt the children in a very timely manner. But the way that it worked out for us, we could really just see that God had his hand in the process of us getting our children and then being able to adopt them. It was just miraculous, really, how it all worked out. So the first time that we had a foster care placement was with our 2 oldest sons. We received a phone call one afternoon in 2012. And they said that they had 2 boys that needed some foster care placement. They were aged 2 and 3. And so my husband and I went down to Omaha to pick them up and brought them home. And it was a huge, crazy transition for us, of course, and for the boys. But after only a year, we were able to adopt those 2 boys, and that was such a blessing. So that was in March of 2013. And then in December of 2013, we got another phone call for another foster care placement of 3 siblings, and they were aged 2, 16 months, and 3 months. And so we took those in, and those 3 are our daughter and 2 youngest sons. And pretty much the same scenario happened with them, that only after a year of foster care, we were able to adopt those 3 children as well in January of 2015. So yeah, our family grew very, very quickly from 2012 to 2015. But we are so blessed to have our 5 children, and yeah, they all consider them, even though they come from 2 different families, biologically, they really are, that's not a topic in our family very often, and it is just, they just consider themselves to all be siblings, of course, and they're really close in age, as I've mentioned before, and so they really play well together. And yeah, we are so blessed to have our 5 children, but we definitely saw the Lord's hand at work in our family and how he brought that together. So What are your reasons to do homeschooling? So and I think this is another question. As a child or young woman, what did you want to be when you grew up? And did you always plan to homeschool your children is another question. And I went to college at Iowa State University, and I got my education in elementary education, and I graduated with a degree in elementary education. But as I was doing my student teaching, my last semester of my schooling, I really didn't enjoy public school teaching. I just felt like I didn't really get to know the children very well. It's a lot, there's a lot that you have to cover in a really short amount of time. There's a lot of, I just felt like there was a lot of, I don't know, it just wasn't for me. It wasn't, I really wanted to be able to teach children on a more personal basis. And anyway, the thought came in my mind while I was student teaching that, well, even though I don't really love this way of teaching, maybe someday I'll be able to homeschool my children and put my degree to use in that way. So that did pop into my head when I was finishing up my college education. I never did end up teaching in the public school setting, and that's okay. I've been able to use my education for my homeschooling, so that's been great. But then the main reason that we did decide to start homeschooling was because our two oldest sons do have a developmental delay, both of them do, and when I was working full-time, they were in a preschool early intervention program in our local school system. And I went into the school often to help out in their classroom to volunteer. And my oldest son was really being segregated from the rest of the class because of his behaviors. He was really having a lot of behaviors in the classroom that I was not seeing at home. A lot of aggressive behaviors, and so that the school felt that they couldn't come up with a solution to help him in a way other than keeping him confined in a desk by himself. And that was the solution they had come up with, was the children would be on the rug doing a group activity together, and my son was by himself in a desk, and he wasn't allowed to participate with the rest of the class in a normal way. And when I went into the classroom and saw that was how he was being treated, I just did not like that. I was just really disappointed in the way that was handled, I guess. And so that was and I did speak to the teachers and the principal of the school, but they just felt like that was the best solution that they could come up with. And I agreed that his behavior was completely different than what I was seeing at home. And so, I don't know. I just knew without a shadow of a doubt that was not what was best for him. And so that's when I decided to resign from my position that I mentioned last time and stay home with them and start homeschooling them. So that was 7 years ago that I did that, almost, not quite, but so my oldest is 12. So he was 5 years old, and then my second oldest would have been 4 years old when I started homeschooling them. And then we've just always homeschooled since. I actually was planning on starting my 3 oldest children in the public school system, not full-time, but as kind of a supplementary education program where they would go into special education for a couple of hours a day. And we were supposed to start that on March 16th of this year, and that was the first day that schools were, not meeting in person anymore. So I kind of feel like God used that as well, just to be like, no, this isn't what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to keep them home and continue to homeschool them. And I just really know that that's what I'm supposed to do, and that's what's best for us. So I'm really happy for that confirmation that I have now that I'm doing the right thing, because it is really easy with homeschooling, I find, to have a lot of self-doubt and I'm always concerned whether I'm doing enough or if I'm doing the right thing. And so anyway, I'm glad for that confirmation that I am doing the right thing for my kids. The next question, I think I already pretty much answered it, is how did you go from working full-time to a stay-at-home homeschooling mama? So I think I answered that already. What time management skills do you apply when homeschooling 5 children? So yeah, it can be a little bit tricky to homeschool all 5 children. They are able to do quite a bit of stuff all together. So I guess I'll just go through our day to give you kind of an idea of how we do our schooling. We start off with the Bible. I write down on our chalkboard the date and then a Bible verse for the day. So the children recite that out loud individually. And then they write out the Bible verse in a notebook, so that practices their handwriting and copying skills. And then I read aloud to them a kid's Bible devotional book. And then I read also, right now I do a science book of some kind. So right now we're going through a book about animals, wild animals from North America. So North American animals, and we're learning about their characteristics and, special features about those animals, which is really interesting because the kids are really interested in animal wildlife. And of course, living out here in the country, we do see a lot of wildlife, and so it's fun to learn more about them. Then I also read to the kids from a poetry book. So I read, maybe half a dozen poems, depending on the length of them each day. And it's a specific book that I'm reading for children's poetry, which I really enjoy. The kids really enjoy that as well. And then I also do a social studies reading aloud to them. Right now we are going through a book specifically about Nebraska's history and agriculture and many different, it's kind of like a wide, all-inclusive study of the state of Nebraska. So we're working through that right now. And then each of the children have their own spelling list. So we go through their spelling words and they practice those. Then they each do a writing page, so like a language arts page where maybe it's reading comprehension, where they're reading a paragraph and answering some questions about that, or learning about verbs or contractions or compound words or similes or antonyms or synonyms or antonyms or homonyms. So anyway, we just learn, they practice a sheet on that. And then they each have a math sheet as well. We work through that as well. And each of them are on their own individual lessons for both the language arts and the math. But I work through them. So, we're just working all together at our dining room table. Several times, even this morning, there were 3 kids that were trying to ask me a question at once. And I just have to tell them, hang on a second, I'm helping this child right now. You have to wait your turn. So it is difficult for them to wait their turn sometimes. But of course, we just have to do that. And so anyway, we just work through that. And then each of the children read to me aloud for about 20 minutes. And that I do away from the table. So once the kids have finished their book work primarily, or if they're doing something that they're independent on, then I can start having the kids read aloud to me one at a time. And then we always finish off our school day by doing a times test. So every day we just do a times test for, we take 3 minutes and each kid has their own, times test that they're on. And so we just continue to practice that each day, just to try to get those math facts in their mind. So then I also read aloud to them during lunchtime. So I always read to them from a children's literature fiction book. Right now we are reading the Borrowers series, and that's been a lot of fun. I hadn't ever read that series before, so we're really enjoying that. And then I also read to them before bed. We have 2 different bedrooms for our 5 kids, so each of those 2 bedrooms have their own book that I'm reading through right now. Right now I've just started Beverly Cleary's Ralph S. Mouse, is it called? I think that's right, to 2 of my children, and then the other 3 I am reading through the Chronicles of Narnia. Okay, what is your favorite subject to teach? I would have to say history. I really enjoy history, and I love reading about history. So that's definitely my favorite subject to teach. I really also enjoy reading the poetry aloud to the kids. It's a lot of fun. How do you like homeschooling? I do like it. I love it a lot. It is very difficult. Like I mentioned, we do have some learning difficulties in our home. So it is a struggle at times to try to figure out how to teach them in a way that's going to be effective. how can I word this differently so that you can understand what I am trying to say so that you can complete this task, is I have to try to be really creative a lot of times to come up with a way that is effective for my kids to learn, because yeah, especially my two oldest really have a lot of struggles with their schoolwork, and it can be hard to have patience all the time and, you know, continue to slow down enough to help them and walk through them step by step with everything that they need. So, but we get through it. I love it. Overall, I love it. Absolutely. I love being able to stay home with our kids. I love being able to see when they do learn something new, or when they really are progressing in their reading, for example. It's just such a blessing to be able to watch them learn and grow. What are your favorite books, or the books that have shaped you the most besides the Bible? So yes, of course, the Bible is my favorite book, but I really love children's literature. And as I mentioned, I read aloud to the kids a lot, and that is definitely my favorite. And I would think that I would say that that is what has had the most impact on my life, just because there are a few different books that I've loved ever since I was a child, and I still love them today. And I also, like I said, really enjoy history. And so all of the books that I'm going to share with you are either historical fiction or historical nonfiction. So I just grabbed a few of my favorites. It's hard to narrow it down, but Charlotte's Web by E.B. White is definitely one of my favorites. I absolutely love this book, love the movies. There's a few different movies that I absolutely love that have been made from this book, and it's definitely one of my favorites. This is my idyllic farm setting that I would love to have here on our farm, but like I mentioned last time, it's not in the cards right now. But, you know, I just love the idea of having one pig, a couple of sheep, a goose, and her goslings, and a horse, and a cow. You know, it's just an idyllic farm setting, and I really love this. We also really enjoy watching spiders outside of our home. We right now have a garden spider that is out on our porch. This is the second year in a row where we've had a beautiful garden spider that has lived out on our porch, and they're pretty harmless to humans, and they don't want to come in the house typically, so they're pretty harmless to have around, but they're gorgeous. And she just laid a huge egg sack yesterday. So yeah, that was really fun to see. My oldest son was like, "The garden spider's gone, Mom." And I was like, "Oh no." I said, "Well, she's probably laying her egg sack," because that's what it did last year. It went down below on one of our planters and laid a huge egg sack. And I said, "She's probably around. Let's go look for her." And sure enough, she had just gone down a little bit on the window and laid her egg sack. Anyway, so we call her Charlotte from Charlotte's Web. Okay, the next book series that I want to share with you is called, well, it's all about Betsy. So this one, I don't know which one this is in the series, but it's Back to School with Betsy. This is a series that I was read to by my second grade teacher. It's by Carolyn Haywood. And this is set back in the, I don't know when it was written, 40s maybe? Should look. Yep, copyright 1943. And yeah, it's a whole series, at least 5 books that go along with this series, which I have already read to our kids. And I absolutely love them. You know, they're very old, you know, they were written back in the 40s, but they're still so sweet. I just absolutely love this book series. A classic, Little House on the Prairie series. This is Little House in the Big Woods, which is the first one in the series, but this is by Laura Ingalls Wilder, of course. So this is based on her actual childhood. So this is considered nonfiction. And I love this series. Another one is Anne of Green Gables, classic by L.M. Montgomery. And lastly, Heidi by Johanna Spyri. So those are just a few of the books that I absolutely love, and the ones that have had an impact on my life, especially as a child, and even now as I continue to homeschool our children. So, Have you grown up in a Christian family, or is your faith a more recent thing? So I did grow up in a Christian home. We went to a Lutheran church when I was little. We did not go all the time, but I did go through confirmation as a young child. And yeah, it definitely was part of my childhood growing up. But I did not come to a Christian faith until I was in college. So I went to college at Iowa State University, like I mentioned, and my my neighbor in the dorms was going to the Catholic church on campus, or right near campus, and I was going to the Lutheran church, which was right next door to the Catholic church. And so we would always just walk to church in the morning, on Sunday morning, and go to church. And then another gal on our dorm floor saw that we were going to church every Sunday morning, and so she invited us to come to a college-aged Christian group on that met on campus. And so we went there, and that is where I finally understood the gospel and how it applied to my life. And I will share a little bit more about that when I answer some upcoming questions. What gives you strength in your life? So definitely of my faith in Jesus Christ as my Savior is what gives me strength. I find a lot of strength when I read the Bible, and I know that God really speaks to me through His Word. And yeah, that is definitely where I find my strength, is in my faith. What are some of your favorite Bible verses? So when I was going to that college ministry, it was called the Salt Company at Iowa State University. That first semester of my college was when I started going there, and I distinctly remember a message that I heard there. It was based on Matthew 7:21 through 23, and even though the meaning of this message, the message of this scripture is a little bit hard to hear, it is still one of my favorite passages from scripture, because it's what the Lord used to really open up my eyes to be able to understand His truth. So Matthew 7:21 says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day, many will say to me, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name?' And then I will declare to them, 'I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness.'" It just gives me chills to even read that today, because I knew that I was, like I said, I was going to church, but I was basing my salvation on being good enough. And I was a good girl. I tried to follow the rules, and I tried to do what I thought was right. And I thought that was what, if somebody had asked me, "Why are you going to go to heaven?" It was because, yeah, I believed in Jesus and that He had died on the cross to save me from my sins. But I was basing the heart of my faith was based on, I'm a good person, and I'm going to go to heaven because I'm a good person. And I wasn't completely surrendering my life to the Lord as my Savior. So that was the difference. And this passage is what really opened my eyes. People were saying that they prophesied in His name. I've never prophesied in His name. That they cast out demons. I'd never done that. And yet they weren't even known by the Lord. And so I was just struck by that truth, that I really wasn't known by the Lord, because I was basing my faith on my own works. And the second passage I want to share with you that is so important to me is Ephesians 2:8 through 9, which says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast." And that just goes right along with what I was just saying, that is the heart of the gospel, is that you cannot do anything to earn your way to heaven. We are all sinful. We all fall short of the glory of God, and there is no way that we can do enough good works to earn our way to heaven. And that's what I had thought before I understood the gospel truly. And so Ephesians 2:8-9 is just such a huge, important passage to me, because I think it just really puts the gospel into a nutshell, where you do not have to work. There's just so much more freedom knowing that we all just fall short and there's nothing we can do. That's why if we could, Jesus wouldn't have had to come and die on the cross to save us from our sins if we could earn it ourselves. And so it's just so freeing to know that we can just completely surrender to him and not try to earn salvation or earn his favor. So anyway, that is just such a huge passage to me. It's so meaningful to my faith. And then the last scripture that I want to share with you, it's kind of an oddball scripture probably, but it is just one that's really special to me because it is so fitting for my life. It is in Psalm 113, verse 9. It says, "He gives the barren woman a home, making her the joyous mother of children." Praise the Lord. And I read that a few years ago, and it just, stood out to me so clearly because it's my life. I am a barren woman, and yet I am the joyous mother of children. How can that be? How can a barren woman become the joyous mother of children? But I am, and it's all because of God's work in my life and how he has blessed us with our children. So that's a really special verse to me, just because I feel like it's so applicable to my life. So those are just a few of my favorite passages, but of course, those are the ones that are really, really meaningful to my life specifically. But it's hard to choose a few, but I tried to just narrow it down to a few that were really applicable to my life. So, do you have any devotional books or studies that you would recommend? I have done several different Bible studies, but my favorites, I just pulled a few of my favorites, and this one is called 12 Women of the Bible, and it was written by 6 different women. They helped to do the lessons in this study, but it just goes through the women that are in the Bible and talks about their life stories, and that was a really great study that I enjoyed. And then definitely one of my favorite Bible study authors is Priscilla Shirer. So I have 3 other studies, and all of them she's either a co-author or the author of. One is called Discerning the Voice of God. I did a study on Gideon with her. And then I also did this study, Faithful, Abundant, and True, 3 Lives Going Deeper Still, and that was written by K-author Priscilla Shirer and Beth Moore. I've also done several of Beth Moore's studies. Here's a picture of the 3 ladies, if you're not familiar with them. So this is K-author Priscilla Shirer and Beth Moore. So anyway, those are just a few of the Bible studies that I have done that I've really enjoyed. What is your favorite hymn or worship song? My favorite hymn is I Surrender All. It is such a good song that I just sing whenever I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed. It is such a good song. So I absolutely love that hymn. And yeah, I highly recommend you checking it out if you haven't yet. It's a very old hymn, but the words in it are just so wonderful. They're just so freeing, and yeah, it's a great hymn. So those are all of the questions that I am going to go over today. I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit more about me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you really enjoyed this episode. If you did, feel free to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet. I would appreciate that so much. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.